It is Tudu Tuga, the Everything Portuguese Soccer podcast. I'm Kevin Jesus. That's Christian Frere. That's Mitch Frere. My goodness, we have lots to talk about today, and it all gets started with World Cup qualifying. Portugal, 2 games away from booking their spot to Qatar. They've got Republic of Ireland coming up. They've also got the big game, and that is Serbia. That is the final game of World Cup qualifying. Boys, Portugal never makes it easy for themselves. I mean, they're guaranteed at least a playoff spot. So right off the bat, very quickly, do they get the 2 Ws and book their spot to Qatar?
Oh yeah, no, I'm really confident coming into this next few games for this lesson. What we saw last time out is exactly what we've been wanting to see from this lesson. They've been on point. They've been playing well. Everyone's firing on all cylinders. There's a lot of players in our seleção right now that are in very peak form at club level. So I think we're going to be getting top performances from everybody on the squad. And I was not thrilled with Fernando's call ups. Yeah. But I mean, there's enough quality on there to certainly get the job done. But I really, really would have liked to see him bring in a couple of younger center backs. Either Thiago Diallo, who's been playing really well for Lille. He's been partnering up with José Fonte at Lille. You know, he's a young kid, but I think we need to start getting some young blood, or Inácio from Sporting. Either one of the two center backs, I would have liked to see them get a call up, because I think we need to start integrating these younger center backs, because look, it's all formats back there, man.
I know.
José Fonte, Pep. I mean, we got to start bringing in some of these younger players.
For sure. Honestly, after last game Portugal played, I think they're listening to our podcast. Ever since that rant with not playing well with Ronaldo, we've been looking really good that last game, like you said, firing on all cylinders. And I totally agree. They need to add a little bit more young blood, guys like Jallo, guys like Inácio, just because, like you said, they're all getting older. I think this is Pep's, maybe not, he's playing really good now, but I personally think it's his last World Cup. And I think it's that time to start integrating some young talent. I'm not saying they got to start, but just play a couple games, couple minutes, start getting their feet wet a little bit. And yeah, so like I said, yeah, I don't agree with the whole, like all the call ups. There are certain players, like I love Felix. He's an amazing player. He's a pivotal point of our national team in the future, but he didn't have that many minutes yet. So maybe guys like Ricardo Horta should have got a call.
Yeah.
It would have been a great.
What about Jota from Celtic? Come on. He's
I don't know.
Such good form.
I'm not on the Jota trade yet. I hope
that's fine.
For
You're
him,
slow.
but...
That's fine. Hey, I just want to say hello to Daniel Fernandes, who's tuning in. He's also, I think he's still a little hungover, because he says that Mitch has a nice camisola. So his eyes might be a little blurry this morning. I don't know what's going on. But you know what? The game that really worries me is Remembrance Day, when Portugal takes on the Republic of Ireland, because we all saw what happened the last time that they played, where Portugal was just giving it to them, couldn't get anything done until who else but the GOAT himself, Cristiano Ronaldo. This game is in the Republic of Ireland. I mean, I'd be a little nervous a little bit that, I mean, Ireland they're wanting to play spoiler here, right? So it could be it's one of those dangerous games. I'll be very curious to see what happens. I do think Portugal ends up getting the W, but it wouldn't put it past them to see this end up in a draw.
I agree, man. It's going to be a tough game.
Yeah.
I think the key is going to be capitalizing, finishing our chances. And again, I think it comes down to, we've got a lot of players, especially in the attacking roles, that are in very good form right now. Ronaldo's in great form right now. You've got Diogo Jota, who's in great form right now. Bernardo Silva, who's in great form right now. Rafael Leão is in great form right now. So you've got all these players that can come in and play attacking roles if they're not starting. These guys are going to come in. Their confidence is high, so we need to have them on point, and they need to be putting their chances away. So I think, if you look at the last game against Ireland, we just could not finish. That was our biggest problem. We just couldn't put the ball in the back of the net. So I think if we're able to capitalize on our chances, I think it should be a comfortable win.
For sure. And again, we're talking Portugal here, so anything can happen. Anything can happen. Usually in these games, we usually tend to crumble. I remember a few years back when we needed to beat who was it? Was it Hungary? It was Ukraine. We needed to beat Ukraine, and we lost in our last game. Yeah. So anything can happen. Like, we usually make it on ourselves, but
that's why I say the Ireland game is the one that worries me the most. You get the W against Ireland, we're in the driver's seat against Serbia. right?
Yeah.
Short of a
100%.
loss, we're in great shape. But I mean, it's one of those things. I mean, thankfully, Portugal's in a situation where qualifying for the World Cup is an expectation and not a surprise. But at the same time, that also can be a little bit of a curse, right?
Yeah.
So we'll have to see what happens with
but
that.
that being said, the quality on that field, the players we're putting forward, we should be winning easily. Like, even if you just look at the game today with Manchester United versus Manchester City, we had so much quality out there. We had João Cancelo, we had Bernardo Silva, we had Ruben Dias, we had Bruno Fernandes, we had Ronaldo. Like, we have big players that even a game like Ireland, we should not even be having these conversations. Should just be like, yeah, we're going to win. Anything can happen, but knowing our history, we're still nervous. But that being said, we should win.
You guys have talked before about how it was exciting to see Cristiano Ronaldo go to Manchester United because of the chemistry between him and Bruno Fernandes, and the way that would kind of work, not just on a national team level, but now you're getting that year round through the club, and you're starting to really see that here. Bruno Fernandes had that really nice heel pass in the last game. I think it was the Champions League game or whatever. But they're finally really starting to click on that club level. I think that's a great thing for Portugal, because now you're going to hopefully see that translate into the national team. Because, let's call a spade here. It wasn't there, quite frankly, in Euro 2020.
100%. And I think some of the great national teams in the past few years, a lot of them play together. Like, if you look at that iconic Spanish team, most of them are from Barcelona. Most of them are either Barcelona or Real Madrid. Mm-hmm. They play with each other constantly, week in, week out. So having superstars that play together will only benefit Portugal.
I agree.
Like, you have it a lot with Manchester City. A lot of big pivotal Portuguese players play together. Now with Bruno Fernandes and Ronaldo playing together, it just could only benefit us, man.
Not only playing together, but playing against each other is also helpful, right? Because you get to know each other's strengths and weaknesses playing against each other just as much as playing together. That's, again, going back to your Spain example, that's, again, why those guys were so good when they clicked, because they were so used to playing with and against each other. For sure. So, that being said, it's just going to benefit us. Yeah. And it's funny because we talked about this. It was either going to make or break Bruno. It's either going to be really good or really bad. And you know what? Knock on wood, so far it's been really good. That those players together have just been fireworks. Those assists by Bruno Fernandes and those finishes by Ronaldo have just been, really special to watch. Yeah, 100%. I'd just like to see Ballon start getting a spot in for Basaka there for Man United.
It's one of those things that it depends what style you want. Like, for example, today Man United played three at the back. Yeah. I think that with three at the back, that would benefit a player like Dalot. Yeah. Because when you have three at the back, it gives leeway for your right backs or your wing backs to push forward and attack more. And I feel like Dalot is better offensively, and Wan-Bissaka is better defensively. Yeah. So I think in that kind of system, Dalot should be playing.
I agree. And I mean, guys like Mourinho have called him, one of the best right backs that he's ever coached.
Wow.
Right. So I mean, that guy, he is going to be a special talent, but he needs to be somebody that good. For me, he needs to be playing week in, week out.
So would you agree? This is just my personal opinion, but I almost get Cancelo vibes from him. But I'm not saying he's as good. Yeah. Obviously, I'm not saying he's as good, but he's a great attacking, skillful right back.
He is, man. He is very good. He is very good. Very good. I watched a lot of him at Milan last year, and man, he was unbelievable. Yes. I'm a big fan of Dalot, and I really wish he would have either been loaned out or he would get the start with Man United, because, like I say, a player that good needs to be playing week in, week out.
You know what? I hope, because Ole at the wheel is he's not doing a very good job. He's riding that bus right off the cliff.
This morning, the Glazers might have got out their checkbook and cut him a £7.5 million check to hit the road.
What do they do? Do they bring back Sir Alex? And I mean that with all sincerity. Do you bring back Sir Alex just to finish the season, and then you wait and make a big splash for later in the year?
I don't want to give Alex a heart attack, man. No, man. The poor guy.
Zizou is the only option, I think. Right
now.
Zizou.
I think
Zizou is the man to take United to where United should be.
Yeah.
Ole just can't do it. Zizou's worked with Ronaldo before. He knows how to get the best out of him. He knows how to build a team around Ronaldo. And if that's what United obviously is staking their kind of bet on is Ronaldo taking them to that next level, I think the only sensible choice is to bring Zinedine Zidane into that team.
Yeah, there was a picture I seen. I wish I sent it to you earlier so you could have put it up, but it showed how Manchester United today by halftime where they were, like where the players were positioned tactically, and it was all over the place. It was a complete mess. And like, to be honest, Man United should be, I'm not saying they should win the Prem, but they should easily be competing for top 4 position. Like tactically, they don't have any idea. There was no aggression. There was no confidence. There was no tactics. There was no nothing today. I personally don't think he's a good coach. And
so don't agree with the people who say that Ronaldo is the problem?
Oh, of course not. Oh, I think after the last few games, we can see that Ronaldo is.
Oh, because there was a lot of people. I sent you guys an article that I found on Avala about a guy from Italy who wrote an article basically saying that Ronaldo is the problem at United.
Yeah, it's funny because they wrote that article, and then the next game they lost to Sassuolo 2-1, and they were like in 10th place. Yeah, Juventus did. But man, you know what? People like to hate on Ron about his work ethic, but I seen a stat yesterday that he covers the most grounds and he makes the most runs. Only one player does more than him. It's Salah. So he's the second highest. He has the second highest work rate essentially in the Premier League right now. So I don't think he's the problem, especially after today. We can see that just tactically they're not there. They're missing. They have a lot of huge holes. Like I don't think McTominay and Fred cut it for a team like Man United. I think they need a better CDM, like a way better CDM. They need another
RoboCop. McTominay doesn't cut it, man. Come on.
And I would like to see. I actually mentioned it earlier. I'd like to see a new CDM coming in. Maybe a guy like Pagina. He's a really good. I don't want him to leave, but a guy like Pagina. I like another center back to come in for United. A guy like Koulibaly, maybe, just throwing out a name. He plays for Napoli. He's a really good center back. And I'd like to give Delwall a little bit more minutes. I think even just those 3 pieces would change the team. And then obviously you'd have to start with the coach. A guy like Zizou you brought up earlier. I think that's the only guy you can bring in at this point.
Well, it's funny because we were watching the game today and we were talking, and I asked you the question: do you think Bruno's playing too deep? Because ele estava desligado. He was, and we see that sometimes with the Seleção too. Like if he doesn't have that really, really good core 2 midfielders behind him that can bring him the ball and give him that support, ele fica completamente desligado do jogo. Like he completely he becomes lost, man. Yeah. And you need Bruno, a player like Bruno, you need him in the game. You need to get him the ball. He needs to have the ball at his feet. He needs to be making passes. You need to be making runs for him. Like that's how you get the most out of a guy like Bruno Fernandes. And I just don't think that Man United right now has that core midfield that can win the ball and get him the ball and give him the support that he needs to get the best out of a guy like Bruno Fernandes.
So I'm sure you heard this. I'm gonna give you a good example. Like Paul Pogba, obviously. Mm-hmm. So they say that Paul Pogba for France, he's a different player than Man United. Mm-hmm. And my opinion is the reason why he's so much better in France is because who's behind him? N'Golo Kanté. And N'Golo Kanté does all that work behind him defensively, which gives him the leeway to do what he wants more offensively. Yeah. I think if a team like Man United had a great CDM like that, it would just give more leeway to Bruno, that he doesn't have to be so deep. He could play a little bit more further, take a little bit more risks. I think it just goes back to the coach, where they are tactically. I just don't think he's the right man for the job. I was actually listening to an English podcast, footy podcast, and they were actually saying that they think Ollie's the worst coach in the Premier League. He's like, not statistically, not in terms of points, but tactically, they just think he's the worst coach in the Premier League. I'm not saying I'd go that far, but honestly, if you compare him to a guy like Conte, compare him to a guy like Klopp, to a guy like Guardiola, would you put him in the same conversation?
No.
Nowhere near.
But here's a question I'm going to ask you. Do you think Man United is better or worse off than they were under Jose Mourinho today?
Worse. I think they're worse. But this is the thing. It depends on how you look at it. And I'm going to actually bring Benfica into this too. So before Mourinho, he was a great coach. We can't argue that he's a great coach. Same with a guy like Jorge Jesus. But I don't think that system works anymore, where you can yell at players, be hard on them, ride them. I think Mourinho's problem at Man United is that the way he talks to players, the way he implements things, doesn't work for a lot of good players because they're like princesses now. You can't talk to certain players; they get all sensitive. And I think that's what the downfall is with Mourinho at Man United. It was because he had that thing with Paul Pogba, and they essentially chose Paul Pogba over Mourinho because it was an easier fix.
Yeah.
And like going back with Jorge Jesus, I don't know if you heard about that blow up. I think I shared it in the chat. Players just don't take that anymore. And I think Ole was doing a so much better job at United because he's a nice guy. You know what I mean? He pumps egos and he's really passive. He doesn't hold people accountable.
Yeah.
So that's my personal opinion.
That's a good point, man. It's honestly a really good point. Yeah, I don't know if Ole is going to be lasting very long, especially after today.
Personally, I think he should have got fired. I think he should have been fired after Liverpool. I think they're holding on way too long, personally.
Yeah, and this is where you're going to get you're already getting pressure from the fans. You're going to start getting pressure from the players as well. And they're going to say, listen, we can't squander the opportunity. We just spent a lot of money bringing in Cristiano Ronaldo. The last thing we need to do is just, squander all of that away and just settle for the mid-table here. So they're going to have to make some sort of move here. I would imagine we've seen the last of Ole Gunnar Solskjaer here. And then they'll have to wait and see. This is kind of goes again to prove that just because you were a good player doesn't mean you're a good coach. So
who else? Let's say they don't go with Zizou. Who else could they bring in for Ole? Won't they just?
I know a guy. I don't think it's going to happen, but the guy I would personally bring in is the Ajax coach. I think he's an amazing coach.
That's not going to happen mid-season here.
That's why I said before I even said it. Is I don't think it's going to happen, but a guy like that for United would be top.
Yeah, 100%.
Top.
Okay, guys.
Right now.
Yeah.
Let's talk about some Portuguese teams here. One thing that is really starting to, you know what? Here's actually a really good point. Ricky Ferreira, thanks for tuning in. United 17 points out of a possible 33 and 11 games is unacceptable. You're 100% right, especially when you've got a team as stacked as they are. It is unacceptable. Now, with that being said, there's the Premier League. There's a lot of parity there. I mean, it's actually fun to watch this league, but my goodness, it is. They've got to get something done, as we've said. So it'll be very interesting to see what happens. We have another person tuning in here, Havoc, saying he's hearing Diego from Atletico Madrid as a possible replacement.
Diego Simeone.
Yeah. Wouldn't that be something?
I don't know.
It'd be fun
for United.
Yeah, he'll definitely be flipping tables, though.
He's a little too defensive. I think he's way too defensive for United. I'm not a fan of Simeone's style, man.
He's a good coach, though. Like I think he's more like a Conte style. He's a great coach. I know what you mean. He's very defensive. He doesn't play that sexy football, but I don't think it'll be a bad move, but it's not that. I'm with you.
I don't think he's the type of coach that knows how to get the most out of a guy like Ronaldo.
Oh, yeah. I think they clash.
Right now, Man United have placed all bets on Ronaldo. And you know how it is, man. When you have Ronaldo on your team needs to be built around him.
Yes.
You just need to.
That's why I think Zizou would be the guy.
That's exactly.
They have a great relationship.
Zizou is the only guy right now. Yeah. If they're not going to bring in Zizou, don't bother getting rid of Ole, because you're just going to waste more money on another coach. Like I think Zinedine.
They got money to burn. It's fine.
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah.
Except
sure.
They don't like to do it. That's the problem.
Guys, I'm getting a little concerned here. A lot of the people that are tuning in are Benfica fans, and that's just not cool. So why don't we?
A lot of smart people watching the podcast.
You know what? Let's bring them all down to earth here and talk about Champions League. And Benfica just dropped the ball big time against Bayern Munich this week, losing 5-2. They're now in third place in the standings. I mean, I still feel they're looking pretty good for at least a Europa League qualification. But, I mean, what's going on there? I mean, we knew it would be a little bit of a tougher group, but what's going on?
Well, first off, I'm going to start by saying let's not all hit the fucking panic button, because Benfica dropped 2 games to arguably one of the best teams in Europe right now. So, I mean, when you watch Bayern play, they are on another level. So I mean, for us to think that we're going to go in and either win or get a point out of Bayern, it's they're a very, very good team. So, and the thing is, Jorge Jesus did not go into either game to sit back and defend and try to get a point. He tried to play Orge with Bayern. He tried to attack them. He did not sit back and sit 11 guys behind the ball and try to squeeze a point out of the game. He didn't do that. So, I mean, when you're not doing that and you're going head to head with a team like Bayern, you're going to get hit on the counterattack. And we got destroyed, man. We got destroyed because of the just pure quality. I mean, you see Leroy Sané, that goal he scored. I mean, Serge Gnabry, Lewandowski. I mean, what are we talking about here? The quality there is it's night and day. Now, on another side, I think there is a bit of a crisis going on at Benfica internally with regards, and you kind of alluded to it earlier, with Jorge Jesus and the players. And you were talking about it earlier, and coaches and the old style of the way they scream at players. Jorge Jesus has always been a nut job. You watch, I don't know if you've ever, there's a program out there on Canal 11, Sagrado Balneário, and they do an interview with Cândido Costa, who used to play with Porto. He actually used to be coached by Jorge Jesus in Bolonês, way back in the day. This is way before he even coached Braga. And he was talking about how crazy he was. He's always been this way. He's just a nut. He screams at players. That's just how he is. So when you look at a team like Benfica, and you were saying, it's a new generation of players that don't really like that tactically or that tactical approach from a coach. They don't know him. They don't know how he is, and they don't like it. And, you got guys like, some of the old guard, Pizzi, Rafa, Andre Almeida, guys who have played under him before. They kind of know how he is. But these new guys that have come into the team, Otamendi, Gilbert, Verissimo, all these guys, they don't know how he rolls, man. And you saw it. There's a couple of videos going around out there where you have a throw-in that Gilbert was supposed to take. And Jorge Jesus just, typically Jorge Jesus fucking flailing his arms, obviously, and Gilbert just turns around. He smacks the ball towards Jorge Jesus and says, "Calma, caralho."
I didn't see that. Yeah.
So you see that kind of reaction mid-game, and it's like, man, there's obviously in the dressing room, there's a lot of stuff going on. The players may not like the way he's coaching. There's a lot of rumors that even Otamendi and him had a bit of a blowout. That's maybe why he didn't start against Bayern Munich. So there's rumors that say Otamendi threatened to, if Jorge Jesus doesn't change the way he talks, that he threatened to leave in January. So in the dressing room right now, I think there's a little bit of mending to do. Maybe Rui Costa needs to come down and have a talk with Jorge Jesus and say, hey, listen, you may need to tweak your approach a little bit. But I mean, I know Richie's saying the new generation is soft. They respond well to criticism. I slightly agree with that as well. I think these guys need to toughen up a little bit and grow a little thicker skin. But at the same time, is Jorge Jesus a little bit of a nut? Probably, but I think he means well. They're just not used to that style. And when you're not winning games, it doesn't help, right? Yeah. When you're you lost to Portimonense, you're tying Estoril, you're dropping, you're getting your ass kicked by Bayern Munich. They're not getting the wins. So it's
yeah, I agree. It's all about moments, and now it's Benfica. Before it was Sporting, Porto's gonna get their time. So it was crazy because I remember when I'm looking here, Benfica beat Barca 3-0, and it was peak. Yeah. We're back, and then right after, that's literally a few days later, lost to Portimonense. Mm-hmm. They played Trofense in the Taça Portugal. They barely beat them. Yeah. Then they got beat by Bayern, which you can't really blame anybody would get, but still another loss. Vizela, I don't know if that was an amazing game. They scored literally with a minute left. So that could have been another tie, another poor result. Guimarães, they tied in the League Cup. Next game, they tied Estoril. Then they lost to Bayern. Like you could just see something like their morale is they're not at a good moment. You know what I mean?
No, they're not, and that's
and soccer and any sports when you're losing, it gets harder and harder.
The pressure, because Benfica, especially in Portugal, you're expected to win, so the pressure is super high, and it's a bad moment right now for them.
Well, and when you're not winning, every little problem becomes amplified, right? And it becomes a huge issue. So it'll be very interesting to see. So while Benfica is losing and doing a terrible job, you know who's doing a great job? Sporting is. And they came away with a big 4-0 win over Besiktas. That's put them into a tie for second place with Borussia Dortmund, and that sets up a huge matchup on November 24th. Dortmund versus Sporting. Essentially, you've got a trip to the round of 16 on the line for that game. How are we feeling about Sport? I mean, the atmosphere at Alvalade was out of this world. It was really good to see.
Yes, we're at a really great moment. We had a lot of players injured that they're coming back, and we're coming into form right now. That last game that we played against Besiktas, I know it was a week in Besiktas. I know that, but you just know when a team is gelling, and you can just see that they were solid. We had players like Sarabia that's just getting used to our league. That finally you're starting to see his quality come up. He had an amazing game. His passes, like Paulinho, man, he's missed a couple massive chances off of Sarabia's foot. We're definitely flying all cylinders. I wanted to add that I know it's a big ask, but we're playing Dortmund at home. If we win by 2 goals, we're automatically qualified. Doesn't matter what happens in the last game. So, and I remember like when we lost 5-1 to Ajax, the whole world was crashing. We're like, oh man, we don't even know if we'll make Europa League. We can't handle the pressure. And then just a few weeks later, we're on top.
Vancouver Whitecaps could be Besiktas. You're not wrong there. I don't think you're quite wrong there. I love it.
I think they might be a little bit better than Estoril though, but we'll see.
I will say this though: if there's ever a time to beat Dortmund, now is the time. They've got some injury issues, they got some injury concerns, so they are ripe for the picking. So there is a possibility that Sporting could be going over into the round of 16, which would be such a good moment for this club. I mean, we all know Sporting doesn't have a lot of the money that Benfica and Sporting. Benfica and Porto do. So it would be good for the organization to get into the round of 16 and then see where things can happen. But it'll be really interesting to see what happens there.
Speaking of the organization, I just have to say something. I think one of the big reasons why Sporting is experiencing so much success is Ruben Amorim. I don't think anybody can deny that. Ruben Amorim is such a great coach. And he's done such a good job. He's so young, and I think all Sporting fans should be very thankful for a man called Frederico Varandas, Dr. Varandas, and I think all Sporting fans should be very thankful that they have such a great president who brought him into the club.
So we have Dr. Varandas and we have DJ Bruno Carvalho. Did you guys see that video of him DJing in a nightclub in Lisbon? Man, that guy is something else, man. I don't know about how he mixed his songs there. I think he needed a little bit more work, but that was pretty cool to see that.
Guys, hell is frozen over. Benfica fans are saying nice things about Sporting. For Portugal, I hope Sporting goes through. Let's keep that ranking up. I agree, guys. At this point, we can all shit on our other teams or whatever, and we'll have fun with it. But we always want the Portuguese teams to do well because that does help with our rankings. So that brings us to FC Porto and a 1-1 draw with AC Milan. They're now in second place in their group. I mean, the group of death, it's pretty unreal. Porto, I thought, probably deserved the win. It's unfortunate that they came away with a draw there. And then, they're going to have their hands full now going up against Liverpool and Atletico through the final 2 games of this group stage. But, I don't know. I think Porto may have done enough to at least earn a spot in the Europa League. But what do you guys think?
Honestly, I remember going back to our earlier podcasts, we talked about where the teams were after the summer, after the transfer window. And we said that Sporting had a great transfer window, Benfica had a great transfer window. But I know you alluded that Porto didn't seem like they did enough and you didn't think they would have a good season. And I mentioned that Porto never is really talked about enough when they're off season, but they always field a great team. They're actually looking like I think between them and Sporting right now, they're the two best in terms of form right now in Portugal. A guy like Luis Diaz, he's playing lights out. Honestly, I look at that player and I can see him play in any team in the world right now. You just know after we watch soccer as much as we watch soccer when a player is special. He is a special talent. He's playing absolutely unreal. He scored again in the Champions League. And Porto has some really good prospects. They're playing really nice soccer. They're scoring at will. They're in a good spot. I would not be surprised if they get in second and go into the knockout stage.
I would put money on it, man.
Yeah.
I would put money on it. They looked very good. And, you look at AC Milan. I don't know if you guys watched. I watched AC Milan play Roma last weekend. AC Milan is a very good team, man. A very good team. And they could not handle Porto in that first half. Yeah. Like, Porto was destroying them that first half. So, you look at that and you're like, they've got what it takes, man. They really do. They play that really hard kind of. You can see the jogando com corpo e alma, like they really play.
Like Ricky just said there, I couldn't agree more.
Yeah, that grit, that hard mentality, and that's a lot. That comes a lot down to Conceição, and as a Benfiquista, obviously, our rivalry with Porto is what it is. But I've always said, Conceição is a great coach, and he is able to get a lot out of his players. We talked about, when Porto shit the bed against Liverpool, man, look at the way that they responded. And I don't know if you noticed it, but it's something I love. I should never use the word love and Porto in the same sentence. It's something I actually, admire that Porto does is after every game on the field, Conceição gets everyone in that little group, and you can see him talking to the players. It's those little things that Conceição does really well, that he gets those guys and they play for each other, man. And when you look and we talk about Benfica in their moment and Jorge Jesus and stuff and the differences, I think that's the difference. Conceição is not a soft coach. He's not a soft coach. You see the way he screams, yells, and everything, but it's the way behind the scenes he can unite the team and get them playing for each other. And I think that's the big difference. I think that's the big difference between him and Jorge Jesus. Yeah. Because you look at the way Porto responded after that game.
Yes.
And they just come together. They play for each other, and they're just.
And another thing that I noticed, I know Amorim does this in a different way. They're completely different coaches. I feel like Amorim is more of a players coach. He always protects the players.
Yeah.
He's very, very well spoken. If you notice his IQ with the media, I'm starting to learn that that's a whole nother playing field, is how you address the media, because players hear it.
No doubt.
He's the key to that. But what they have similar is that they always talk about how big their team is. So if you hear Ruben Amorim is like, oh, you're playing for a team like Sporting, we have to win every game. Conceição, when they got spanked by Liverpool, is that if this is how Porto is going to play, a big team like Porto, then I don't want to coach this, because what I'm trying to get at is that they hold them to a higher level, and they implement that playing for those badges. It's a responsibility, and you have to represent your club to the highest level. And I feel like although they do it in two different ways, the end goal is that standard is very high. And that's one thing I totally agree with you, is that he does that very well. He can get the most out of players. And he, like I said, he holds that standard.
And they've got depth, man. Porto has a lot of depth. Like we talked about it kind of towards the beginning of the season. We didn't know if they were going to have the depth. But look at up front, man. He's cycling through Taremi, Martinez, Ivan Nilsson. Who's the other one there?
Pepe? Not Pep, the Brazilian defender, but they got a Brazilian winger. Pepe.
So like you've got depth up front, and they can all score goals, man. Like they're all scoring goals. They're playing well. You got Luis Diaz. Like the team has depth, and you see it, and it's coming through because they're playing well in the league, and then they're going into the Champions League, and they're putting out these great performances against big clubs. They're not out there playing Besiktas.
Ah, God. There we go. To be fair, we played really well against Dortmund too. And you can't argue that. I mean, did lose 1-0, but we were without a lot of our top players. I think this next game is going to be a really, really good game against Dortmund. For Sporting, yes.
Against Dortmund.
Yes. At home. I honestly, like, if we play like we did against Besiktas, I know it's magnified because it was Besiktas. It was a week of Besiktas. I do realize that. But like I said, when you can just see the team solid. You can see that the way they pressed the ball, the way they were super organized. It was just the best version of Sporting this year. So it's I can see if we beat Dortmund, I would not be surprised. I'm not saying 2-0, but I think they can get a result.
Especially with those injury problems facing Dortmund.
Yes.
So I think it's definitely ripe for the picking. Hey, guys, we've already started been talking a little bit about the Liga teams. So that brings us to our favorite, well, my favorite part of the show, panel picks.
Hands up, then we gonna drop.
All right, so it was an interesting week. We all went 4-1, and the Braga, we had 2 games that we were picking with Braga, and those were the ones that kind of tripped us up. Christian, you thought that Braga would lose in the Europa League. You were wrong. And which we got to say, congratulations to Braga. They're in first place right now in their group in the Europa League with 9 points. So they're doing really well as there. Both Mitch and I thought that Braga would tie against Gil Vicente. That was not the case. Braga got the win. So we are looking in pretty good shape here. Let me just pull up our current picks for this week in 2 seconds. Sorry, this is a little clunky. Here we go. Let's take a look. So we've got 3 the games involving the Big Four, and we got some international games as well. So Porto versus Santa Clara, we're all going Porto, no big surprise. Santa Clara is just a disaster. They'll be relegated this year without a doubt.
But Santa Clara did beat Porto in the Taça da Liga. So I was really, really like, do I go with a draw here? Can they but I don't think so.
Yeah. Okay, do you really... Porto, I'm sure, will be approaching this game much differently than they did with the Taça. Like, let's just call a spade a spade. Sporting Passos Ferreira, we're all smart and going with Sporting without a doubt. Benfica versus Braga. This is a huge game this season. You both are going Benfica. I'm going with the draw. I just think there's too many issues with Benfica. Braga's in good form. I mean, Braga, they're on a 10-game unbeaten streak. They haven't lost since September 16. Whereas Benfica, 3-game winless streak. So I'm going with the draw there. I think that it'll be single points all around for that game.
Yes, I was actually gonna pick a draw. I just slightly led towards Benfica because I know they just dropped from first to third. I can't see them dropping more points. I think they're going to be really up for it this game. And they usually, besides the Taça, have a really good record against Braga. They used to call them Benfica B. So I do think it's going to be a very tough game. A very close game. It's a really good Braga side. Uri Medeiros, I'm a big fan of him. He used to play for Sporting. He's coming onto his owner now. He was injured for a long time. They have some really good players, man. If you look at their team, you actually break down every position. They actually have a really, really good team. So it's going to be a tough game, but like I said, I'd slightly lead towards them just because I can't see them dropping more points.
It's funny. So when Sporting played Braga, we asked if you thought it was a must-win for Sporting at the time.
Yes.
I think this is a must-win for Benfica. Not so much because if we lose points here, we may not be able to get them back. I just think from a morale standpoint, Benfica needs a win. And I think against a team like Braga, it can get the team back up and feeling good and get their spirits up. This Braga team, like you said, is very good. And I think if Benfica can get a win here, it gets us back on track. So I think in a lot of ways, it is a must-win for this team because if we lose against Braga, this team starts going in a tailspin down.
Yes.
And
that train will be derailed. It'll be off the tracks.
It is going to be bad news bears for Benfica. So I think in a lot of ways, it really is a must-win, if nothing else, just for the morale for the morale standpoint.
Just to add to that, I don't think it's a must win. I think they can't lose. If they lose, I'm with you. I think if they draw, it's a poor result, but I don't think it's game over.
Yeah,
I think they'll
you're
be
right.
like
You're
3
right.
points, like 3 points back. They still got to play Sporting. They can catch them. And like I said, like look at Sporting last year. We had like a crazy point lead. We tied 3 out of 4 games, and then it's open again. I don't think it's a must win, but talking about morale. If they lose, I think I still don't think it's a must win, but it's going to be really, really hard on Benfica.
So you're right. It's not a must win. It's a must not lose.
Must not lose.
Yeah.
And one more thing I want to add: when does the pressure go on Jorge Jesus? Because I don't know. Like I think he's a good coach, but I think you got to hold him somewhat accountable.
100%, man. 100%. I'll be the first to say I've never been a Jorge Jesus fan. Even when he was with Benfica before, people who know me know I've never liked Jorge Jesus as a coach, ever. When they brought him back, I thought it was a big mistake because I thought everybody who knows me, again, knows I've always liked Bruno Lage. I've been a huge fan of Bruno Lage. I love the way he came into Benfica.
Yeah.
And I thought it was a big mistake the way we got rid of him. But he's there. We got to deal with him. It is what it is. But I agree, man. At some point, Jorge Jesus does need to be held accountable, 100%.
Yeah, for sure.
You know, Ricky Ferrer he's a huge Benfica fan, and he's got
It's an understatement. I've never seen somebody post so many eagles in my life. Every time I go on Instagram, it's like 15 pictures of eagles.
I'm sure he's got pictures of Eusebio, Rui Costa, Nuno Gomes, Jorge Jesus, all up on his wall.
Yeah.
Look, Benfica need a response after the Bayern game. I'm worried if we go up a goal, Jorge Jesus doesn't go for the kill like versus Estoril. He also mentions every game is a must when you do the math at the end of the year. You always look back and start adding up the missed points. 100%. There's no denying that every game in a sense is a must win. But to Christian's point, it's definitely a must not lose. There is wiggle room in a season to get away with a single point here or there. You don't want too many of them, but that is certainly a possibility.
One thing to add on, like I know we love these kind of derby games, but I'm telling you, Benfica Estoril is just as important as a Benfica Braga. If you tie Braga or you tie Estoril, it's the exact same thing. Mm-hmm. Like I fall guilty to it like all the time. It's these big games, but every game counts, man. Like you should just be this. You should be this pumped up for like a Benfica Moreirense.
Yeah, and this goes
like every point count in every single game. Just because it's Braga, it doesn't change anything.
And
you know what I mean?
To what we've talked about a lot. Like the Portuguese league this year is very competitive. You're not going into Vizela thinking it's going to be a 5-0 spanking. Like, did you watch the game against Vizela?
Of course. I watched the end of it. I tuned in.
It's a very well-coached team, man. Very well-coached team. Like, we were very lucky to get out of there with a 1-0 win.
Yeah.
And I'll be honest, man. And the coach said it at the end of the game. The Vizela coach said the better team did not win today. And I would agree with him.
Yeah.
That Vizela team looked very good. Vizela, this is a newly promoted team. Like, Benfica went into Vizela and had a really hard time getting a 1-0 win. Like this league is very different than past years, man. The Portuguese soccer has stepped up its level.
Honestly,
to your point earlier, I think it's graças at coaches like Conceição and Ruben Amorim and even Jorge Jesus who are raising the bar. Like it's making everybody do the same thing. And it's if nothing else, it's great for Portuguese soccer as a whole.
Yes, for sure. And like I know we didn't get to talk about it that much this week, but Sporting Guimarães, you had a big game. Yeah. Guimarães is a really good team, man. Good team. The first 15 minutes, you can see they played really, really good soccer, man. They have guys like Edwards, Quaresma, fill in the blanks, man. André. They have a really, really good team. And shout out to Sebastian Coates. He's got more goals than Paulinho, a record signing. He's got, I believe it's 3 goals in 2 games. He's just been unreal. But like I said, if it wasn't for him scoring off set plays, would have been a tie. Like the level is so high right now. And you know what? In a way, I like it. Yeah, like I mentioned a couple podcasts ago, I'd rather Sporting win the league with like 3 losses and 6 draws than win every game. It's just nice to see a competitive league.
which is nice to see. To just wrap up our panel picks, we all picked Portugal to beat the Republic of Ireland, and we're all thinking that Canada is going to beat Costa Rica. That Canada-Costa Rica game, by the way, over 40,000 fans are going to be at Commonwealth Stadium. It's going to be cold. It's going to be awesome. Can't wait to see that. And, of course, then a few days later, Canada takes on Mexico, also at Commonwealth Stadium. Over 40,000 tickets.
Hey.
Anyone in the Edmonton area, go out. There's still some tickets available. They actually put out some good seats up top in the upper bowl this morning, so there are some more seats available. They're trying to sell it out. And Daniel Fernandes, I can speak for myself. Yes, I'm going to the Mexico game. Cannot wait. Hopefully it'll be just as entertaining and as similar result as the game against El Salvador in Toronto, which I went to back in September. What about you guys? Are you guys heading to the game?
Yes, I got tickets.
Which one?
Was that for both games?
For both? Oh, awesome.
I don't care if it's minus 40. I'm going to be sitting there.
Excellent.
But I wanted to ask you guys, both you guys, one thing. Do you think picking Edmonton for those games was a tactic to freeze those players?
No. So here's the backstory. The only reason why Edmonton got the games is because the Edmonton Elks got COVID. So when the Elks got COVID, their schedule, they had to find a way to make up the game, or else they would have had to forfeit it because they didn't meet the minimum threshold of enough players vaccinated. So they needed to figure out a way to reschedule it. And what ended up happening was the only way they could make it work was shifting around. The Riders game wasn't supposed to be yesterday. It was supposed to be like next Saturday. So they moved that game up, giving themselves a 2-week window. Then they looked in Toronto, and then they said, okay, well, we're going to move the games that were scheduled for Toronto. We'll move them to Edmonton instead. So Alphonso Davies has been wanting to play at Commonwealth for a long time. And this is going to be an awesome opportunity for him. The crowd's going to be nuts. And it's going to be a great opportunity for Edmonton, too. FIFA is going to be arriving here 2 weeks after the games for a site visit to determine host cities for the World Cup 2026. I mean, look, Canada is one of the host countries. There's only 2 cities in the running for host cities. So, yeah, it will be Toronto and Edmonton. There's no doubt about it. But you still want to have a good showing. And having over 40,000 fans at both games is going to be pretty awesome.
I honestly, I think it's going to benefit us. You're going to have a bunch of Costa Ricans and a bunch of Mexican players coming to play in potentially minus 15 or minus 10. It's only going to benefit us. I think that's our element. They're going to be out there freezing.
100%.
So it will be turf. Rich was just asking, natural grass or artificial turf. It will be the turf at Commonwealth Stadium. They are working, though, to make it, soccer friendly. They have the groundskeepers, a guy from Poland, big soccer fan, so he's already been working with the Canadian Soccer Association to make sure that it is in good condition. But I will say the one question that I certainly have about that is Bayern Munich will certainly be keeping a very close eye on Alphonso Davies. He's had some injury concern a little bit this year, so I certainly would be hesitant with cold turf. That could certainly be a little bit of an issue, but we'll have to wait and see what happens. And Daniel Fernandes saying grass in 2026. That is the belief that they'll end up ripping out the turf and putting in natural grass for 2026.
We used to be the only city with the natural grass. I think they should.
Yeah, exactly. And then they went to turf. It's a lot easier. And the fields, I mean, for football, natural grass will just get chopped up and it turns into a mud bowl. It becomes pretty dangerous actually for football. So that's why they've gone to. And turf, it's not like it used to be, where it used to be cement essentially, AstroTurf over top. It's actually good field conditions, so it shouldn't be an issue.
I'm sure you know about this a lot more, but I heard that turf is better for football because in terms of impact, when they land on the grass, there's more compression.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely.
I think that wasn't also another reason why. The rubber pellets.
All right. Let's switch over to our Sashi Star of the Week presented by Sashi Pair North America. Visit SashiPairNorthAmerica.com for more information. I'm going to get the ball rolling on it, and it's no surprise. I've used this person before. I'm going to use him again, and it is Jota, 22 years old, 2 goals, 3 assists in 8 games this season, a goal and 2 assists in Europa League. This kid is awesome, and there are reports now that Celtic is going to make a permanent offer to keep him around. This kid is just taking the Scottish Premier League by storm. Celtic fans love him, and I think Portugal fans will love him when eventually one day, hopefully soon, he gets called up to the national team, because I think he deserves it.
To your credit, Kev, I would prefer him to Everton right now.
Yeah.
I wish, and I do wish Benfica would have given him more playing time. But yeah, to your point, I would prefer him at Benfica right now to somebody like Everton.
I agree with Mitch, but I was trying to figure out why you liked Jota so much. I think I just figured it out. I know Celtic's very similar to Sporting. I think the green stripes. And
maybe that's what it is.
I think that drew you in, and then you started seeing
I'm just
Jota.
paying attention a little more, and I'm like, yeah, hey, there we go.
He did score a really nice goal in Europa League.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, because he's amazing. I mean, that's just how it works.
I can't even pronounce it.
Mitch, who's your Saji star of the week?
Ricardo Horta. I love this kid. I hate that he plays for Braga and not Benfica, but this guy, I mean, I don't know what this guy needs to do to get a call up to the seleção. But again, Braga's in first place in the Europa League. The guy put out a stud of a performance for Braga midweek in the Europa League, 3 assists. And he just keeps impressing me. He's so good, and I just don't know what the hell this guy's got to do to get a call up. But I love him. He, talking about the quality in the Portuguese league, he's one of those players that outside of the big three that just makes the league that much better. Having a guy like that in a team outside of the big three is great.
Yeah, 100%. Ricardo Horta, if you're listening. Do me a favor. You want to get called up? Score a hat trick on Sunday.
Yeah, there you
against
go.
Benfica. Be good.
It'll get the
Trust
job
me.
done.
I'll get your call up.
You heard it here first. And Christian, who do you got?
Okay, I switched it up because I got a lot of feedback from you guys. I only pick Sporting players, so.
Well, it's either Sporting or it's Cristiano Ronaldo. Which full disclosure. I said you may as well pick Cristiano Ronaldo and say he's the Saji star because of the twins, but you've decided not to do that.
He might not win Ballon d'Or, but he won Ballon d'Or. Back-to-back twins. I like it. Anyways, I picked João Cancelo. I was leaning towards Coach, but I picked him already. João Cancelo, if you didn't know, this week he had in 2 games he has 5 assists. 5. And he could have even had more today. He could have scored. He's just been on fire. The commentator was saying that he is the best right-footed left back he's ever seen.
And he's not even a left back.
And he's not even a left back. He's naturally a right back. Honestly, if Kyle Walker wasn't English, he would be playing right back right now.
Yeah, he's the best left and right back.
He's the best left and right back. So that is another option for Portugal in the future.
Yeah,
they can play him at left back, given the amount of talent we have in the right back.
Would you put him over Nuno Mendes? Or because Nuno Mendes is starting to solidify his spot at PSG.
It depends. Like
so there's going to be an argument that Nuno Mendes could be taking a spot.
Yes,
at left back.
yes. To be fair though, and the reason why sometimes I am a little bit biased towards Sporting for sure, but you got to also understand that these players I watch in depth week in, week out. So I know these guys' talents, which you can do the same with Benfica. You'll know both certain players and certain attributes a lot more than me because you watch them more in depth. So I knew Nuno Mendes is a very special player. So that's why I was pushing him maybe a little bit prematurely. He is an amazing left back. He solidified his left back role in PSG. But, it just, like I said, it gives us another option. Cancelo can play left back. Yeah. We have so much right back talent right now. Mm-hmm. We talked about it. We probably have the most right back depth on the planet right now. Maybe bar England with Trent Alexander-Arnold and James. But yeah, like we have options. It's just another option for us in our stacked of a national team. We have so much talent coming up, and honestly, you can make a case that we're one of the favorites for the next World Cup, given on what Portugal shows, and given that it's mid-season. Like I know I keep referring to this, but I don't think people realize how much of an advantage that is having the World Cup mid-season, especially since most of our players play in such a competitive league and play so many games. I remember, not making an excuse for him, he should have done better, but a guy like Bruno Fernandes, I seen a stat that he averaged a game in the last year and a half every 3 days. So he had a lot of games under him. So having a World Cup midseason, like look at the form Bernardo Silva's in, Bruno Fernandes in, Ronaldo. Imagine getting those guys on the national team right now in the World Cup. Yeah, you can't argue that you won't get more out of it. So I'm really excited for the next World Cup. And I think it's being Ronaldo's last World Cup, we can make a push for it.
Yeah.
I don't see why not.
And that's a whole other podcast, and maybe we'll do that once we have it confirmed that Portugal has booked their ticket to Qatar. Guys, we're out of time here. A big thank you to everyone who tuned in live and sent in some great questions. Love the conversation. That was a lot of fun. And yes, if you're going to the Canada game, cheer loud for Canada. Cheer loud for Braga to beat Benfica. And obviously lots of good soccer games coming up ahead, so let's enjoy, let's have fun, let's celebrate. Thanks for tuning in, as always, sending in questions and great comments, and we look forward to hearing from you soon. Have a good one, guys.
Ciao, guys.
See you guys.